Just about everybody I know and come in contact with want to have close relationships. They want to have intimacy, they want to be vulnerable, they want to have depth, they want to be able to be themselves. They want to be sincere, and these are amazing things. And there's nothing more powerful emotionally or spiritually, in my opinion, than going on a journey to have close relationships with someone or with people, with different people and different types of relationships: romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, client relationships, sibling relationships, children, parents. All these different types can have these close relationships. But these terms that I've been throwing out here, and I did it intentionally, like intimacy, like vulnerability, like depth, like close. They're wonderful terms, and they have a lot of different levels to them. And what one person thinks by a vulnerable relationship or a close relationship may be very different than what another person thinks. So I just want to throw a few things out. So first of all, it begins with deciding what type of relationship that you would like to have with a certain person, with your sister, with your boyfriend, with your mother, with your child that's 28 years old. Like what type of relationship, as far as like how, what do you mean by close? What does that mean to you? Okay. And those of you that have been on a journey to have a close relationship know that there's a lot to them. They're not for the faint of heart. They bring things up. They sometimes will activate things, trigger things in ourselves. We feel vulnerable. Vulnerable sounds great, and everybody wants it, but when you start doing that, it feels raw and exposed, and you feel rejection, you feel all neurotic. Oh my God, do they still like me? And that doesn't mean you're weak of character. That just means you're having you're attempting to have a close relationship. It brings a lot of things up. Are you and the person you're having a relationship with were likely not conditioned or prepared to have a close relationship. So we're swimming upstream a little bit here. Okay, so the first thing, so a couple of things is really deciding that you want to have a close relationship, and then having some ideas about what that means and what it takes, emotionally. Like emotional availability. Are you willing to feel deeply? Are you willing to go on that roller coaster I was talking about, a few minutes ago? Are you willing to feel a lot of uncomfortable feelings? Are you willing to get out of your comfort zone? And to what extent are you willing to do these things? Emotional availability is another one of those terms. And it's so relative. Like emotionally available, what I've learned is it's not whether someone just is or isn't emotional available. A better question is, am I, and is the person I'm relating to, are they emotionally available to have a relationship that I would like to have with them? If I want to have a close relationship with them, are they emotionally available? Am I emotionally available to have the relationship I want to have? And if not, do I want to do some preparation and some work so I am emotionally available? And that might be even as like creating time for it, doing some therapy, doing some meditation, doing some self-inquiry, doing a Brene Brown workshop online, whatever it means. There's a million ways to do it, but it's like, it's first of all, you being realistic, what you want, and are you prepared, and are you willing to do what it takes to have that? Okay, so then when you do that for yourself, what that does is it gives you ideas of what it's going to require for the other person. Okay, and so And then it's noticing if they are willing and able. Do they want to have a relationship that's as close as you do? Do they want to have, and they likely say they do. They want to be close and they want to be vulnerable. I mean, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people say that, and they all mean it, but it means different things. Okay, it means different things. You can be a little vulnerable and it can feel like you're still vulnerable, and it still feels really uncomfortable if you're being a little invulnerable and you're not used to being vulnerable at all, and you're a little vulnerable, it feels really, really vulnerable. And that's different than if you've been, doing a lot of work on yourself for a long time. And so there's different, it's relative. So then once you decide what relationship you want to have with this person, you start noticing, and you can start by asking them and listening. Their words are great. We're not going to totally rely on their words because, again, it means different things, and so we're also going to watch their actions. Okay, and we're going to try kind of getting close and see what they do. We're going to, and when it gets awkward or it gets uncomfortable, like, what do they do? Are they willing to stay with it? Are you willing to stay with it? If it, and hopefully it doesn't, but sometimes it does get a little uncomfortable, and you can find out kind of what what you're willing and what they're willing. Now, often the people that are watching this blog, since you're watching a blog on vulnerability on relationships, you might be wanting, most times you may be wanting a relationship that's a little deeper than maybe the other person, but you never know. So if you've done a lot of work, then your family member that hasn't done a lot of work, you may be wanting a close relationship to you may mean something very different than a close relationship that your mother wants. She still wants to be close, and you still can be close. That's the good news. But it's going to have the depth that both of you are willing and able to meet at. It's the limiting factor thing. It's like you will only be as deep as how do I say this? How do I say it? It will only be as deep as the depth that the least the least deep of you is willing to go. That was terrible English, but you get the idea. Is like that's how deep it'll go. And then when one of you bottoms out on your depth, we'll call it, when one of you bottoms out, then it's like you kind of course correct and then create a relationship at that level. Okay, and then at that depth. One of the best homework assignments I ever got from my spiritual teacher was I was in Boise, Idaho. I was working in a psych hospital, but the psych part is somewhat irrelevant to this. But it was a small hospital, and my assignment was to create a relationship with everyone I knew at the hospital, all my coworkers, all my acquaintances, to create a relationship with each one. And I succeeded. It took me a while, but even Bruce the cook, I created a relationship with Bruce, and our relationship was, the depth of our relationship was about us kind of flipping each other's shit and laughing. Now that wasn't very vulnerable, but we looked forward to seeing each other, and we laughed and we connected at that level that he was willing to and I was willing to meet at. And it was a very rich relationship. Other people, I just talked about football. Some people I talked about relationships. Some people I talked about meditation. Some people I did psychobabble talk with. But there was a way to connect with everyone. And each one of those relationships, had richness. Some of them had more depth and more vulnerability than others. So the good news is you can create relationships with your family and friends, but it's really good. What I'm suggesting is really good to be realistic about what it takes for different levels of depth and intimacy and vulnerability, and just noticing, trial and error, just kind of noticing, what level that's at, and then kind of matching that, and then bringing as much richness and love and beauty and connection and intimacy, all those things. It's bringing them into as much as you can at the level that that relationship is at, and then calling it good. Then you do have a close relationship with your sister, and a close relationship with your mother, and a close relationship with your significant other and your child and your dog. And so but they are, they may be different levels of depth. And what I do not recommend, and I'm sure you've done it, I know I did it many times, is try to create a relationship that has more depth than either I or the other person is willing to do. And then I would say, oh, well, she's not emotionally available. Well, she wasn't emotionally available maybe to have the relationship I wanted to have, but she was still emotionally available. It's just like the depth of that. So you get the idea. So that's my challenge to you. That is my video for this week. I'm trying not to have these things go so long. So that is my video. And we'll maybe continue on this theme at either next week or sometime soon, because there's a lot here to unpack. And thank you for watching. Have a wonderful week. I'll try to speak here. And as you go through your week, just maybe really notice what types of relationships you have. And if you want to be closer to somebody, start thinking about what that means to you, and what does that mean to the other person, and how can you find out, what level to connect at. And don't try to connect at a level that one of you is not willing or able to connect at. And I will see you in a week.